welcome everybody to our second webinar out of this three-part series. So FLA, there's a lot of webinars out there, so we're very, of course, grateful for your support, and we hope we can add value with a very engaging dialogue in this during this period of time. FLA has over 100 members, and of course, everything we do is franchise and licensing related. We are the thought leader in Singapore, and we work very closely with all Singapore government agencies. So if you have any concerns, issues, topics you want to raise, feel free to reach out to ourselves, to our secretariat, and to Tricia, our ED, and we will come back to you with the relevant responses and the types of support that you may require. At this point in time, let me welcome our international visitors, who are people from Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, including the franchise associations there, plus some of the other associations. We have about 80 participants that have registered for today's webinar, and we hope that you find the topics interesting. As you know, and this has been widely reported, Singapore is going into a recession, and probably the most painful and difficult recession that Singapore has ever experienced. So, analysts have forecasted that the GDP will contract at least 4%, and maybe even up to 10%. So, in terms of perspective, and for comparison purposes, the Asian financial crisis, 1998, that was a 2.2% contraction. So you can see the difference between what we are currently experiencing, and this is a global phenomena. Okay, job losses during the Asian financial crisis was not more than 25,000, but it's anticipated that Singapore may lose upwards of 100,000. Okay, so during this period of uncertainty, turbulence, we have never lived through this. I think it's good that we're brought together a panelist of speakers, and we hope that, through this dialogue session, we can all learn from it. Okay, that's all I would like to say. Let me pass on back to Tricia, our ED.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Please allow me to run through today's webinar flow. There'll be a 20 minutes sharing by Mr. Gilbert Chee, Franchise and Equity Brokerage of Loken Group, on effective branding strategies implemented during this COVID-19 period to safeguard and build brands. Thereafter, Gilbert will be moderating a 20 minutes dialogue discussion with two panelists, Mr. Andrew Khoo, Chairman and CEO of the Mui Group, and Mr. Anthony Wong, CEO of Creative Eateries. They represent the hospitality and F&B sectors respectively. In the last 15 minutes, they will be addressing questions from attendees, and then I'll end off the session with some announcement. Without further ado, let me pass over the time back to Gilbert.
Hello, can you hear me? Welcome to this webinar. My name is Gilbert. For this session, what we're going to do is I will be first introducing my company, Loken Group, followed by giving 4 tips what are the strategies we can undertake during this period. Then I'll be sharing a little bit on what Loken Group has done with some of the clients and what some of our clients have been doing. So let me share a screen now. Okay, from Loken Group, we are a brand transformation agency that understands Asia. So one of the few things we do, we help more SME build them up as well. We invested into a few companies as well, working into the retail scene We are part of the Abertov Group that consists of companies like us, consulting groups in Europe and in various parts of the world. Over time, we have gained ourselves since year 2000. That's where we were first started off. We have one of the first company, in fact, the first communication group to win the E50 awards. We were also recognized by MTI. Loken, this is what we do. We do brand transformation, user experience. We also do internationalization. That means bringing brands overseas and tech solutions nowadays. So this is me. I'm heading the franchise and equity brokerage of the company itself. So today, we are going to move into 4 tips to strengthen your brand amidst the COVID crisis. So tip number 1, very obvious, it's called healthy mind, healthy business. Now, during this period, many people will tell you to stay healthy, keep healthy. So what does it really mean to have a healthy mind? Now, it is not social distancing. It is not just wearing masks and staying at home. It has to do with your mindset. So during this period, of course, there'll be worries, and of course, there'll be issues arising from business costs, manpower, and some of you may be feeling helpless and at times do not know what you actually want to do. In this dreadful situation, now, the more you think, the worse it can become. The new ideas can only come if you have a fresh mind. So otherwise, anything anyone suggests to you will also seem hopeless. On the other hand, if you are in a desperate situation, everything also seems like an opportunity. Everything you may want to grab. A drowning man will grab even at the straw to prevent himself from drowning. So my suggestion would be to exercise to keep your mind sharp, eat well, but don't forget to listen to your staff who is working on the ground. So if your staff still continue working at the ground, at this time, they will know that jobs are hard to come by. They wouldn't want to lose their jobs either. So they are also on the ground working. Listen to their suggestions, listen to their ideas. It could be quite useful. Now, at this juncture, I actually know of a business owner, Jacqueline of Happy Train. So she's running a brain development school for kids. So usual days as a SME boss is just like teaching, doing operation matters, very busy. But now the school closes, there's nothing she can do. So what does she do? She still have salaries to mind, the rental to bother. So she busies herself with teaching materials, making teaching materials, resources, because she has a time now. So she busies herself with doing all these. Teachers are being trained. So things and resources are ready for franchises, centers when it comes by for a new center. So let me also share with you what Loken Group has done. Well, since December 2019, the Loken Group has implemented working from home. So this is what I usually do. I will set up a regular schedule to regulate my working hours so that I don't overwork nor I underwork. I spend time doing research also. I talk to like-minded people. Definitely during this time, there will be people who are complaining. I'll tend to cut down these people. In the morning, I'll choose the hardest thing to do. The first thing to do in the morning is like calling, making certain, managing certain issues, you know. So in between, I'll be doing things I enjoy, drinking my tea, you know, doing my cooking. I can't go to meet my clients now, unlike prior. So I schedule calls and I also drop by out to buy food as well. So in every situation, what I'm trying to tell you, there's always a way out. Okay, have a clean mindset. Tip number 2, increase your online content and efforts. Okay, I'm going to talk about the China experience. China is the first country to get COVID, the first country to get out of it as well. So we need to study the trends, and from it, we can actually glean small insights. From there, you can actually see F&B, retail, real estate, and also travel are the 4 biggest losers. Now, a lot of people think that the moment the economy gets back after the period of lockdown, things will go back. But it did not go back to the pre-COVID situation. The malls are still open, but it's not as crowded. Restaurants see less customers. The malls, somehow the reluctance of people coming back to go out and enjoy themselves. Could be the fear of virus, could be financial difficulties, but definitely habits have changed. And some of them I feel might have changed permanently. Delivery has boomed, including online teaching and conferencing. Now, amidst this line, amidst this chaos, there is an opportunity. So if you were to think hard, research well, you will definitely be able to find areas of improvement that stand out as growth possibilities. Revisit your business model in terms of technology-based approach. Can you sell your product online? Can you do your service online? Think about the changes of customer behavior before and during this pandemic period. Can your business handle the new type of customer? Think about it. Do allocate funds for reaching out to online customer if possible. Now, we know that change is inevitable. Things are definitely going online. So the obvious has to be done. Now, later I'll be sharing about EE Music School, a client, the changes she did to her business, and how we improve not only for the present, but also for the future. Now, some of you may not be familiar, and how, you will be asking, what am I going to do for all these tech things? I'm not too good at it. Now, tech companies and all these service companies with their sales reps would be more than willing to spend their time with you. They'll be very willing to share. My consideration is take on the customer retention service. Look at it in your minimally, at least increase your online content. Invest in some time and talk to these people. If you think organic growth is enough, I can very well tell you from experience how many small businesses fail when they fail to follow up and address their high value and important customers. This is something that I would like to very much share about. Okay, tip number 3, don't hard sell. So what does it mean by not having a hard sell? When the brain pushes too hard, there will always be an opposite effect. So I talk about increasing your online content. Now this is another aspect. If you hard sell too much, people think that it pushes away the client. People think that you have discount too often, and they think the brand is in a desperate situation, is closing down. It's the opposite effect. So then what do you do? What do you do about this? So COVID is right now in the front of everybody's mind. So you have to make sure your collateral marketing materials, from Facebook to Instagram to even your website, try to incorporate keywords and visual pictures relevant to the crisis into the marketing campaigns, ads to draw attention to them. Make sure that they are appropriate. Now, when you don't hard sell, one of the few suggestions could be you create campaigns with helpful messages. Okay, for example, if you're selling accessories, the retail, you can post, instead of just purely talking about your accessories, selling accessories, instead you go the other way. You post videos on how to wear them, how to match, the kinds of accessories useful for different shape phases. If you have a CRM, if you continually spam adverts, now sooner or later, customers will just cut you off. Okay? So instead, work on ways to relate customers to your product, post messages on education, show concern, show well-being, trying to keep lines of communication open. You need to adjust our marketing strategy. Okay? In this way, you will be in a very strong position to keep your brand safe. Until then, and also for the future, for this period. Okay, the last tip is actually very obvious. Okay, we have been hearing much of the 16 billion package given out, and some of you will be wondering, how come you don't see the seed how much? Now, Enterprise Singapore has a few outreach centers like SCCI, business associations that have business centers that provide advisories. You can read it from the website. You can schedule a call. You can contact even myself to get yourself a friendly consultant whom I know. But I can tell you, all of them are very keen and willing consultants to help you out. Now, your government, the Singapore government, can only boost your business to a certain extent. It can't save you from a rental. It can't save you from a manpower entirely. It can only boost. But in this juncture, if you are needing money, you also need to talk to someone who is in a good position, like a financial advisor, who can discuss with you about loans, how to restructure. Now, there are often always more than one layer when we are talking about loans. You can have things like mortgage brokers, direct lenders, vendor financing, crowdfunding, peer-to-peer. Now, a good financial advisor will not only be able to give you options, but also help you to plan. So it's not just borrowing money. During this time, even myself, I can tell you, we're quite free. Then you have people you can want to talk to, a business advisor. So you have a word with them. Talk to them. Talk to these people who are giving you good advice as well. Now, no, you won't be getting free money or something like that, but at least will help you to arrive at a financial situation, a financial part or business situation where it's best for your needs in terms of ability to pay, in terms of what you can do with your resources. Now, saying all this, you would like to also consider revising a very realistic 6-month plan. This is after all this help coming from the government. What are you going to do? So a realistic 6-month plan would be something you can do. I can't be talking about that right now. So I would suggest that a good plan would be very good. Now I'm going to share with you the local experience of 2 of my clients. Okay. For example, we have invested into a company called Ninja OS. What they do is they actually help companies set up online ordering system, where instead of depending on Grab, depending on where they will take your customer details, Ninja helps to also do your online. So in a way, what I'm suggesting to you is, if you are not doing this, jump into it, do it right now. It's not for now only, but also for the future. Okay. Another experience I want to share with you. Okay, is this particular school called EE Music School. Now it is a school that teaches digital piano. So in this COVID period, they are not able to conduct normal classes as normal. So what have they done? They have actually moved their classes online. So in event, what they have done also, they have also created their lessons to get it ready for the next step. So there's videos to be made, materials are made online as well. Now all this, the teachers at the same time are also trained what to do. Now in doing this, the school is not only getting them ready, making money in a way for the school during this period, though it's lesser, but at least the operations still go on. But it's also meant for the future. With this system in place, which is actually very interestingly, the school is forced to accelerate. They were doing this by at a slower pace, but because of this COVID-19, everything has to be pushed fast forward. And because of that, they have got themselves ready for the next expansion. When this place closes, when this thing has the COVID period ends, they not only can even support different, they already have a franchisee in Lansing and also coming up in Mongolia. They will be able to support not only a very far away country like Mongolia, but also to different parts of China. Now, the founder herself, Lydia, did not stop at just doing this thing. She also reached out to her peers in China itself and learned what they are doing as well. So interestingly, she shared and she also learned from the franchisees. So my suggestion will also be this. If you have franchisees overseas, how they're coping up, what they've gone through, learn from them as well. Okay, in my next sharing is from this very small brand that sells ladies fashion. Last Addiction. So they sell crystal jewelry. So because of this COVID, prior to that, also moving very slowly because very busy as all SME bosses are. So right now, they are moving very strongly on Fave, Lazada, and also in FB, Facebook. To make sure things are doing well, she started negotiating rental with the landlord as well. Kickstart on the online platform. See, she didn't have much choice. She forced to close down. She has forced to retrench some of her staff. See, but she had at least started off with some form of a CRM. Did the email blast to the clients, did the promo, birthday reminders, vouchers, and then also vouchers that every time now and then, like special days, like Mother's Day, which is actually today, right? I think so. So in ending, what I would like to share would be this. It is never too late to start anything. In ending, I would like to encourage you to keep an open mind. Set up a schedule and a discipline to make sure you're not underworking, you're not overworking as well. Number two, try to increase your online presence. Take a look at new opportunities from a tech point of view. Because retail has already changed. So if you need to look at your own business concept, are you able to accept this? Is the business able to take on this? Number three, value your client, value your customers, show concern rather than seeing them as money cows. Treat them differently. Okay? And lastly, talk to people who can advise, give you good advice, will listen to you. So at this juncture, people have a little bit more time, so therefore they are willing to put down and listen to you. Look at the business plans for about 6 months ahead. So this period, I just want to encourage you to try, knock on every door. If that door, you keep on knocking, doesn't open to you, that can tell you maybe that door is not meant for you. Okay, that's the talk. So if you are keen, if you have some need, you can just email me or give me a text or a call. I'll be more than willing to share with you. Okay. Tricia, the next step.
We can follow through with the next segment, which is the panel discussion. So feel free to pose some questions to our two panelists for their insights.
Okay, so for the next session, we are doing on the Q&A. So we'll have with us Andrew as well as Anthony. Okay, the first question. What are some of the effective communication platforms to reach out during this COVID period? What are the effective communication platforms to reach out during this pandemic? Andrew, you want to share on this?
Okay, thanks, Gilbert. You know, I think it's not so much about changing your tact in terms of platforms. You know, before this situation, during this situation, and even after this situation, those communication channels will still stay relevant. So I think if you look at the studies, if you get the sensing on the ground and you hear from customers, and there's some surveys that have been done on this also. Recently, there was a survey done by Twitter. Okay, and so the difference is you maintain those communication channels and platforms, but it is the tone of voice that the brand must use during this very unusual period of time. Okay, so you don't use a tone of voice that is business as usual, because obviously it's not business as usual. So, you know, and there's evidence to show that the brands that speak more about society, okay, about health, the communities, and to reaching out to that to support, and also to support employees. So if the messaging is very important, and the tone of voice used by the brand to show that you're a caring organization, I think that's more important than going to different types of platforms, because those platforms still stay relevant. Obviously, all those digital and social media platforms. So that's my tip.
Thank you, Andrew. Anthony, do you have anything to add for this? Anthony, you need to unmute yourself.
Is that it?
Yes.
Okay. I think this during this phase of the crisis that we're going through, communication is extremely important because everyone is very uncertain, and we are going through very fluid changes every day. So communication is extremely important, and I think that I like to break it up into two phases of communications. Pre-circuit breaker, in the early stages of the crisis in February, to me at that point in time, personal communication is very important. There's nothing more sincere and engaging than personal communication. And what we did was that we have reviewed it, and we felt that there are 4 groups of people that we need to stay communicated and engaged with. First and foremost is our dear landlords. You know, without them, we won't be here doing what we are doing. So they are a very integral part of our business. Although we do have a certain mindset about them, still I think without them we won't be able to do business. So from the very onset in early February, during when right after Chinese New Year, we started to engage all the landlords. From different landlords. Of course, in the initial stage was that, oh no, everybody is still very fluid, but it is important to engage them and identify a few key important decision makers within the landlord organization. Yeah. My opinion is that in life, never deal with the ma zai, deal with the guy right at the top, preferably the owner himself. So we've been engaging landlords on a very personal basis. Number 2, our suppliers are also very important because without the suppliers who suddenly decide not to sell to us, I have no food to cook. So what we did is that we look at the entire spectrum of our suppliers and break them down into 3 categories: the top 20% and the bottom 20%. And those in between the 60%. because if I buy $100,000 from you, I need to be more engaged with the supplier versus the supplier that I buy $10,000 a month. Yeah, and we also know that some of the suppliers may fall off along the way as the crisis deepens, but we need to identify those that can stay with us for the mid to long term. And that has been very useful. And today, we have maintained 80% of our suppliers, and we are constantly keeping in touch with them and working out payment terms, extending credit terms, things like that. So that comes about through a very personal communication. You cannot do this through an email. Yeah, we go straight to the owners of the business. Number three is other bankers. You know, we don't know how long this crisis will last. It's a good thing that our company, Creative Interests, have always been engaging with one or two bankers, and this is a very good time to test each other out and see whether each other believes in our business. The bankers believe in our business and extending, you know, funds for the long run. And till today, as you know, the rates keep changing, so we keep engaging and always to have a standby funding, like you said, you know, to have a runway for 6 months, if not 12 months. Yeah, and last but not least, the people that, the fourth category of people that we like to maintain a personal communication is with the staff. Right from the very onset in early February, when we saw signs of challenges coming up, we have regular town halls with the staff, explaining to them the impact of this virus from the news that we read from China and how things has been turning out. Is there a possibility that it will turn out the same way as it was in Singapore, so that to give them a mental preparation? Now we are in the circuit breaker. We are still constantly engaging these 4 groups of people. We are only 3 weeks away to hoping for a lift of the circuit breaker. So I think we should start talking to the landlords again and see how this, there may be more rental holidays, but let's not bet on it. But we need to find a way forward, because it's not business as usual. The suppliers, you know, we need to tell them what is our business plan forward, so that they will also have the confidence to bring in more supplies to supply to us. Yeah, and then of course the bankers, we have always been in constant talk with them all the time. Last but not least, the staff. What we have done is that to assure the staff, we've broken them into teams of 15 per group, and each group has a manager in charge, and the responsibility of the manager is to call these 15 staff every day to make sure that they are okay, to keep them updated on what's happening. And I think this personal engagement is, communication is very important. Yeah, that's my take on effective communication.
So, what Anthony has been saying is about, to reiterate, is that have face-to-face personalized chat with the stakeholders. So from landlords to your staff. Well, personally, I mean, as a consultant, I do find that a face-to-face communication is always the best. Email, of course, you know, it's just like, you know, my own boy. I cannot always text him and then expect a relationship. So face-to-face communication is always very important. Definitely. That's why I totally agree as well. Okay, the second question here, what are some of the effective strategies implemented to strengthen your brand amidst this COVID-19 crisis? For example, you can talk about partnership, collaboration, JV. What are some of the effective strategies implemented to strengthen the brand amidst this? Andrew?
Okay, I think the important thing is we have to meet the customers in terms of where they're at. Okay, and obviously their preferences, their buying preferences, shopping behavior, habits, all that is also changing. Okay, and as organizations and businesses, we have to adapt and evolve so we can meet them where they're at. And what does that mean exactly? Okay, obviously people are at home more, so it means you need to bring the business to their home. Okay, so for example, in Italy, online grocery or home delivery users doubled between February and March. Okay, and then in China, China's food delivery service, the preeminent company there, also quadrupled their orders in the first quarter of 2020. So you can see people are the consumer preferences is shifting towards a more low touch environment, obviously because of health and safety reasons. So more contactless operations. So similarly, those businesses that can evolve and adapt and move quickly to take advantage of that will benefit. Okay, so for example, just a scan of our newspapers here. You can see, I give you an example. This is just one example. You see, Audi online showroom. So instead of, because like I said, you have to bring the business to customers' homes. So obviously people are supposed to go to the showrooms, but now you bring the showroom to them. So this is just one example of how you can evolve to meet the needs of today's customers.
So reiterating what Andrew say, things are changing. In fact, you look at it as I was saying in the previous speech itself, things are actually changing. And to go back to what certain habits have developed in our consumers. So with this change, I think we also need to think about this. What are the things that you need to look at your business concept? Can you have an edge with a technique to do with some online things? Can you move in that direction? Because change is definitely coming. So if you just consider and say, oh, I'm going to let things be and not do anything about it, let's see how it goes. But so by the time it hits you, it might be a bit. Anthony, can you share on this?
Yeah, on this effective marketing, yeah, I think that you know, ever since the circuit breaker started, overnight we saw a slew of brands appearing on social media in terms of a food and beverage concept that I myself have never heard of, you know. So we've always had online you know, with partnership with Grab and Deliveroo and things like that, and so we were already doing it, you know. So, but then when the circuit breaker started, we saw such a huge volume of brands that comes up, and just as I thought, you know, the e-commerce space for food and beverage, it will never replace the physical restaurant level of business. Yeah, I hope not. I hope not. But while during this period, there's nothing much you can do except online business. So we've added more of our brands to provide online services. We've been following the traction. I talked to some of my friendly competitors, you know, some Chinese restaurants tells me that they're living in paradise because the traction is very, very good. So I was very happy for him as versus to my business. Some low value fast food business are also doing very well. Whereas the middle level type of range business, I feel that the traction is not good. However, it's improving day by day, week by week. It's come to a point that I think for the next few weeks, we are also changing our strategy a little bit. What we started 3 weeks ago, we need to review this online strategy to increase the traction. So I think it's one way. More important thing that I think is that we have to look at our business for the long term, and that I think more so we should use e-marketing to remind the customers that you are still around, and to prepare and to remind them that and welcome them back to the restaurants when the circuit breaker is lifted. I think that's more of a strategy for the post circuit breaker for the next 6 months. Yeah,
that's pretty good. Thank you, Anthony. Tricia, we have questions coming.
Yes, we have 2 questions coming from the attendees. One from Jumbo and one from Zing Grill. Thomas, are you able to unmute their mics? So maybe we will have the representative, Mr. Tan from Jumbo, to pose your question to our speaker and group of panelists.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, Anthony, I would like to share with you, as a franchisor now, can you advise us on what should we do now, to engage our existing franchisee, and also after post-lockdown, because after post-lockdown, we may not be able to fly over so soon, you see. So even we fly over, we may need to have quarantine for 14 days. So what should we do next on that? Can you advise us so that at least, what our next action that we should do?
yeah. You like me to answer the question?
Yes. Can you assist? Can you advise us on that?
I have 2 franchisee, one in Manila and one in Kuala Lumpur. Their scenarios are really very different from us. We are very fortunate. We are really fortunate and very blessed with the very immediate financial assistance that have come from the government that is really giving us this huge breather, while we think of the strategy moving post CB. Whereas in Manila, is really everything is at a standstill. Everything is a standstill. I still remember 3 weeks ago when they had to give their first salary, and the salary was a packet of rice and two cans of sardines. That's all the staff get for the salary, So I think we had to give them advice in stages, because the crisis goes through different periods. I think the first immediate advice to them is to stay calm. And review everything and retain staff as much as possible. That's the very first stage. And then at this stage, and then the last 2 weeks, we've helped them to implement online online business. We share with them all our expertise, our knowledge, so that they don't waste too much time, because we are like 3 weeks ahead of them, So moving forward, I think Malaysia has already opened since Monday. Traction is about 20% of current what it is going, but at least we keep things going and hoping that things move forward. So different phases. I think in Malaysia now we see the opening up will be fully open if there is no second wave, third wave, I see it fully open by the next 4 to 6 weeks. So right now we are advising them to start talking to the bankers and to get ready funds to prepare for them for the next 6 months runway. Yeah, I think those are the things that we advise them. You know, stay calm, look at your business, review, share with them online marketing, and then next phase would be getting ready credits. What's going to do for the next 6 months, and possible even expansion, because in crisis of such nature, there will be people who fall out, and then there's opportunities for further growth of your brand overseas. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for sharing, Anthony. So just saying what Anthony has stated, it is interesting that there are some brands who are still expanding overseas and is able to do so. Rental in those countries, especially in developing countries, going down. So because of that, they are able to get very good spaces as well. It's very interesting. They used to be like the landlord is negotiating, playing hardball, you know. Suddenly the location is free, they can take up the whole floor, and then at the same rate, you know, they are like, oh, you know, suddenly before you know. So we have clients who are, I mean, they probably need a deeper pockets to do things like that. So Trisha, do we have
Okay, we have another 2 questions from the attendees. So the first question is from China's experience, since they're ahead of us in reopening up for business and they're experiencing much lower sales, what are their landlords and suppliers helping to keep them in business? And any learnings for Singapore to apply or fine-tune further?
This question is from a Singaporean or from a Chinese?
This question is from a Singapore company.
In food and beverage?
Singapore F&B. F&B.
Oh.
But if you look at the Singapore context, the government can only do so much. You can't, I don't think the Singapore government can legislate things like you are supposed to lower your rent, because these are private entity, and the most the Singapore government has done is probably done 2 things. One is actually to give a rebate back on the property tax, and that has to translate back. So it's already done in that aspect. The second aspect would be for the rental. If you can't pay, you can actually write in. There is a website you can actually go in to the Ministry of Law. You can actually apply and then get a relief from the rental up to 6 months. During these 6 months, the landlord or the supplier even or the vendor cannot close you down. So you actually have relief for up to 6 months in that sense. But I doubt the government can legislate things like, oh, you don't need to pay any more rental or force them to reduce rental. It's a little bit hard when we are in, that's the price of democracy. We are living in a capitalist country. So as much as we will love to see, but if you look at it, if you are talking to a private landlord, the private landlord also have bills to pay. Then if you force them say, I don't want to pay you that much, can or not? They'll turn around and say, I also got bills to pay, I got people to pay.
Yeah, I could interject at this point. I think a landlord and tenant's relationship in Singapore is extremely unique of its own. Unlike a landlord relationship in Malaysia or Manila or China, I think the uniqueness is cost. The rental cost in Singapore is extremely high.
Yes.
I relatively speaking, sorry, someone said something. Oh, so hello.
Carry on, Hanson.
So the relationship between landlord and tenant in other countries, I think rent is something that is not so high overseas. Yeah, a lot of the tenants, I believe, can withstand 2 to 3 months. In Singapore, 2 to 3 months post-circuit and paying pre-CB rental, not many tenants can last. So it is a relationship that needs to be engaged. Tenant with landlord and government with landlord. Our government should continue to intervene, continue to assist in meeting this gap, like they have done in February, March, and April and May. In overseas, landlord are more based on my experience, because they are not so much of a cluster. We deal with 10 landlords overseas, whereas here we deal with 3. You know what I mean? So the relationship is very, very different. So as we are talking about the Singapore context, yeah, I like to believe that post circuit breaker, landlord and tenant relationship has to find a new dimension. It cannot be business as usual. It cannot be. And that's where government needs to step in one more time, until maybe by the last quarter or next year when things stabilize. That's my take on it. Yeah.
Okay, I think there is also a second part to the question with regards to delivery. So with the COVID-19 circuit breaker and work from home, safe distancing delivery is becoming a necessity for F&B players. What can the group do to get a more level playing field to reduce the high commission of the delivery platform vendors?
On that aspect, I think I like to decline answering that question, because there's just too many discussion on it. And I just read this morning, I think one of the ministers says it is unrealistic for this online service provider to lower their cost. So I think there's still too much in the air. So just let it be until the dust settles on its own.
Well, I think we'll leave it to the government to handle that. In a way, there's a lot of cost for this to reduce. But one thing for sure, we can also tell that the online marketing, the cost has risen tremendously. What used to be 2 years ago, 3 years ago, even on Facebook or doing searches on Google. Partly so because local themselves, we do engage, we do have clients who work with us to do online marketing, and we can actually see, they give us a huge budget, and a lot of time they'll be like, oh, I'm giving you 100 over K, but actually a lot of the money goes into the marketing. It goes to Google, it goes to Facebook. That's the nature of it, because demand increases, and when there's a demand for it, the cost will just go up. And more things you want, the prime time, everybody fights for the same slots. That's how things are like. So we love to have things good and cheap. We love to regulate the things, but I'm not very sure right now. I think definitely enough voices, quick enough to the government. They will look into it. That's why Anthony say there's a lot of discussion. Not very easy to come to a conclusion on that.
Really not, because I'm in the restaurant business and I prefer dining in, but for the Singapore context, I personally don't. In fact, I've given my feedback to ESG that this is an industry that should not be encouraged, because you don't want to have a country where we have 50,000 food delivery people being engaged to do this job, because it's a no skill job, and it's not good for the long term. Yeah. So I'm not in favor of it anyway. Yeah. Maybe next question.
I think that's all the questions that we have received from.
Well, no, Tricia, there's one from I think there's one more question, right?
Oh yeah, there's one more question coming in from Susan. Do you think the companies should continue to hire now and continue to grow since wages are low, or wait for another 6 months for economy to pick up?
Okay, maybe I'll take this one lah.
Yep.
You know, I mean, what we're currently facing could be a 100-year event. Okay, so what I mean by that is we haven't seen the likes of this since the Great Depression. And that was in the 1920s, right? 100 years ago. So I don't think any of us were around during that time lah. But we are in a situation where we may be facing something very similar. So now it really depends on your perspective on how we come out of this, okay? In terms of whether it's a V-curve rebound, which would be say a 6 months recovery, or whether it's a U-curve recovery with a prolonged sort of social distancing and other things lah, and it slowly takes time for the economy to come back. So that will be a 1.5 year sort of recovery. Or maybe your view is that it's an L-curve recovery. So meaning to say some of the markets that have countries that have started to open up, there could be second waves. And then, there's certain reports about the virus mutating. So whatever research has been done to try and come up with vaccines, all that may be further prolonged. And so there'll be more credit defaults, bankruptcies, all that lah. So in that scenario of L curve, that would be a 3-year so-called recovery, 3-year or maybe longer. So it really depends on your perspective and view. And I would say it really is too early to say what it is lah, exactly. I would say the V curve is probably a bit too optimistic. I would probably say it's somewhere between the U curve and L curve, if you were to ask me lah. So whether is it too early to start hiring? My personal view is probably it is, unless you are in one of those businesses that is currently sort of growing or thriving because you are in a sector or industry that is growing because of what's currently happening.
Maybe I'll add on to that, if you don't mind. I think when we talk about hiring, I think we have to look at 2 types of hiring. Of course, management, key management hiring and rank and file hiring. I don't think this is a time to really look at rank and file hiring, yeah, because we really don't know where the business is going. We really don't know where the business is going. We like to be optimistic, and then if the business do improve by leaps and bounds, I can assure you there'll be plenty of people to be hired in terms of rank and file. Yeah. However, I think that it is really time to look at key management to recruit. Yeah. All organizations are going through change. And change comes from good leaders who can make change and who have the courage to implement change. Now, if your company wants to navigate through this post-crisis, you definitely need to change. And if you need to change, and if you cannot do it alone, then you have to hire what's best in the market to help you to manage this change. And I think that you have to answer the question yourself as an owner of organization or owner of a franchisee or a brand. What are you going to do? Are you going to status quo for 6 months, then make changes? Or are you going to make changes 1 month later, 2 months later? Yeah, and then you need to find the people that can help you to realize the transformation. And I don't think we are talking about digital transformation or all this e-transformation. I mean, today in the industry, I'm more familiar with food and beverage. I'm a little bit familiar with retail. If you have not done digital transformation or e-transformation, you are many years behind time. So I think, to me, it's time to start looking at key managers or key people that can make a change in the way you do business moving forward. Yeah. That's it.
So whatever changes you undertake, I would like to also encourage you to do one thing. Look at the changes to your intellectual property. What are the things that affects it? How has it been changed? And then has it been protected? Is it being protected? Especially if you are going overseas with it. Intellectual property, Singaporeans, I notice, especially for Singapore companies, they take it very lightly. You take it for granted. And then when things go awry, your franchisee or even and somebody else copies the brand, they duplicate certain things, then you turn around and like, oh, I need to do something. By then it might be a bit too late. So intellectual property, don't underestimate the power of it. Because even without a proper intellectual property management, you can't franchise your brand at all. Because there's nothing not worth franchising, because if your intellectual property can be easily replicated. Yeah. So Tricia, is there any other questions we need to?
No, I think we have addressed all the questions from the attendees. Is there any last advice from our panelists and speakers before I wrap up?
Anthony, do you have anything to add on?
Actually, there was a question 4 that I wanted to say something. I forgot what question 4 is all about. What's the question?
Effective strategies to implement to strengthen your brand.
Effective
partnership, or what strategy can you do to strengthen your brand?
Okay, so perhaps maybe each of us can give our views on this as a wrap up lah.
So,
Because I think time is also coming to an end. That would be a nice way to circle back to the issue of branding during this period of time. Because of course, the stronger your brand is, the stronger the franchisor will be, and the better chance of survival for franchisees. So it's about the branding also lah.
Yes.
So we circled back to that, should we? Okay lah. So maybe I will start with this. Just my views on this lah.
Okay.
Of course, branding is very important, and in this period of time, branding is equally as important. But as mentioned earlier, it's how do you deliver the brand. You need to stay true to your brand, but like I said before, the tone of voice for the brand, you need to be, I think the key word here is empathy. So you need to have empathetic engagement with consumers, with employees, with your business partners, and with community. And also, just to wrap up what I said earlier, you need to meet the customers where they are at. Okay, and of course, there's going to be a permanent shift to more things digital. So DX, UX, and CX is going to be very important. UX as in digital user experiences, okay, and CX in terms of customer experiences. So those are the things that brands need to be aware of, and to build on that as we evolve our sort of customer journeys lah. Okay.
Thank you, Andrew.
On the question was how to strengthen your brand through partnerships with
any effective strategy.
I'd like to cite an example. Again, and I think one single or two single partnership that any business owners, or in my case restaurant owners, is the Restaurant Association and the Enterprise Singapore. I think I have. We have witnessed that in the last few months, they have been working tirelessly to become a voice for the restaurant owners, and also become a channel of communication for government agencies down to the to the members. I think that partnership is has been extremely helpful. Versus there were other groups of retailers and restaurant owners that has started their own groupings, which took a long time to find its to find its core values, or is I mean they were just renting. Yeah, so I think in this aspect, the partnership to trade association, right, restaurant association. I'm not part of the Singapore Retailers Association. Our constant, almost on a daily communication with our relationship manager with Enterprise Singapore really helped us a lot in the last few weeks or months. And that I strongly encourage people out there who are not members of associations, or whether it's FLA, RAS, SRA, to be a member and rather start an ad hoc group and try to engage again when we are repeating everything all over again. So yeah, that's the thing that I wanted to say.
Okay, so in closing, I want to reiterate one point. Change is inevitable. Okay, the certain behaviors that happen during this TV period will definitely continue beyond this. Some changes will become permanent. So we need to be ready for that. So I would like to encourage you that in your changing itself, when you change your model, when you look at it in terms of for the future as well. That's what my client at eMusic has done, is that when they do changes, the planning itself is not only for this period. Don't just do it for this period, but to look beyond what 6 months down, 1 year, 2 year. Is your system, when you create, ready for franchise overseas, ready to support for overseas? Because the structure they created is not only for Singapore use, but also to support overseas franchise into areas where they can't send their music teachers there. They can actually do it online. They can have something like a star teacher teaching in Singapore, but yet the lesson happens overseas, online. So if you do changes, don't just look at it immediate, look at it for the future as well. So the economy is looking to changes. As what Anthony said, if you have not gone into this, you're 2 to 3 years behind time. Do consider and take on this. It is not something that you're throwing money into. If you don't know, ask, talk to people, relevant people. And I'm sure there'll be people around who are very helpful. Yeah. Thank you, Tricia.
Thank you so much, Gilbert, Andrew, and Anthony for sharing insights to our participants today. And we'd like to thank you all for joining us. Hope that the session has provided some support to the businesses during this challenging period. So please allow me to end off with a very short sharing on some key tools that will be beneficial for your company. So FLA, supported by Enterprise Singapore and in partnership with our consultant, developed the franchise competency framework and diagnostic assessment toolkit. So far, more than 75 brands have been benefited from the assessment. We have shared the online version of the assessment with many of you this morning, and it takes less than 10 minutes to complete. We hope that we can support the companies to identify some of the competency gaps in terms of your franchising systems, so as to prepare you for the post-COVID recovery and growth. We are also excited to commence registration for a 2-part franchise preparation roundtable discussion series, navigating through post-COVID-19 uncertainty. So please stay tuned for our email so that you can sign up for the sessions. For franchisees facing issues, also please feel free to reach out to FLA should you require any support. And last but not least, we hope to see you for the third and final part of this webinar series, Preparing for Growth Post-COVID-19, next Wednesday at 3 p.m. Thank you.